Hi, I'm Mike Nehra, the co-owner of Vintage King Audio. We're in Ferndale, Michigan at our tech shop. Vintage King first got its start in the basement of my parents' house. We had a 16-track studio in the basement, my brother and I. We were just two guys building a studio, adding a piece of gear at a time, and kind of turned into, us just buying and selling gear just to fund our next purchase. And it led to us eventually getting a space in downtown Detroit with our friend Al Sutton. And we built a 24-track room that became, pretty well-known studio in Detroit for probably about 15 years. We had a nice run. In the mid-90s, my brother and I were in a band called Robert Bradley's Blackwater Surprise. We had already kind of started Vintage King, and at that point, we'd start to meet a lot of people on tour. We were touring with the Allman Brothers, Lenny Kravitz, the Dave Matthews Band, and they, we just got into conversations and we started providing gear to them, helping them build studios, etc. Kind of in the later 90s, early 2000s, we started to realize, hey, this is turning into a business. It wasn't just, just flipping gear here and there. And we started to add some employees, and here we are 26 years later with over 100 employees. Okay, now we're in the mic room of Vintage King Audio's tech shop, and what I've got in front of me is a beautiful pair of Neumann U48s. The evolution of the U47, which most people know, is next came the U48, and there was about 800 made. And while the 47 had cardioid and omnipolar pattern, the 48 had cardioid and figure eight. And the Beatles made them really popular by, you might have John Lennon singing on the front, Paul McCartney on the rear. You'd often see them singing in both directions. We'll restore them, go through them, do extensive, probably about a 15-hour restoration on them, and put a 1-year warranty on them. Here we have a great example of a 60s Neumann U67. It's one of my favorite workhorse mics for any application in the studio, and it's just super versatile. This specific example, what's so cool about it is that a really prominent producer that we had purchased it from, he included a letter stating why he loved it so much in the folks that have recorded on it. It's one of the best sounding 67s I've ever heard, and it was used to record the voices of Don Henley, Joni Mitchell, Tom Petty, Willie Nelson, Norah Jones, Sheryl Crow, and many, many more. This mic's just a beauty of a Neumann 67, and I hope that someone puts it to good use and records some beautiful music with it. What else can I say? It's one of my favorite mics in Vintage King's inventory right now. It's a classic Neumann M49, and what's so cool about it is it has media sound inscribed in it on the front. And it was a really awesome studio built in the late 60s, and it was in a church. Many of our clients over the years worked out of media sound. Probably 20 famous engineer producers came out of that studio. Just knowing this mic came from there and all the glorious hits and singers that had sang through this, it's just a magic mic, and I think it'll make someone, the next owner, really happy, and the next singer singing on it, knowing that it's a piece of history. The Vintage King Audio Tech Shop is really the roots and foundation of the company. Grant, we sell a vast amount of new gear these days, but at the end of the day, we started selling vintage recording gear because of my brother and I's actual love of the recording process and how great a lot of the vintage gear sounded. We've never sold gear unserviced. We're not a broker, and that's not what we're known for. When you buy something from us, you know it's going to work. If something happens in shipping, we're going to ship it back to us. We'll figure it out. We'll take care of it. And we got a 1-year warranty on it. Like, where else can you buy a Fairchild 670 with a 1-year warranty, or U47 with a 1-year warranty? So we take a lot of pride in that, and we have over 10 technicians with over 100 years of combined experience. We feel doing some of the best servicing in the industry. Here's a couple pairs of vintage Neve compressors. This is a 2254 pair on a Vintage King rack. It's Class A. This is a Neve 33609 that's Class AB circuitry. What's cool about this one, it's super fat, thick, and syrupy sounding. This one's faster, punchier, and probably a little more transparent. They're both every bit as Neve, a lot to do with the fact that they use these St. Ives and Mariner transformers in them. That's a huge part of their sound. We've got a lot of Neve vintage modules here. This is a pair of my favorites, Neve 3102s. They're really well known for being in Neve 8058 and 8068 consoles from the 70s. They're Class A, probably the pinnacle of the Neve sound of that era. They're 3-band EQs with mic pre's, super fat, thick but not overbearing bottom end, and really nice adjustable mids and top end. This is very similar in terms of the layout and so on. They're Neve 1100s. What's cool about them is they're Class A/B, and they're a little bit faster and punchier than the 3102s. There's not many of these made. They're super rare because they have detented recallable pots, similar frequencies to the 3102s, and just a really nice complement to each other. And this is a pair of 1100s we've got in a Vintage King rack. So, over the years, I was salesman number one, and I've developed a lot of relationships with all kinds of artists and producers and engineers. And a lot of the people that we've dealt with over time, would stop by Vintage King, and they were just common folks trying to make a living, hustling, doing gigs and recording. And it's great to go on and see some of them become superstars in the business. It's really neat to see that, and it's gratifying because along the way, I feel like we've helped them get some of the sounds that they've been, hearing in their head by providing some of the gear that they use and so forth. If you think of legendary albums like Neil Young's Harvest, Beach Boys' Pet Sounds, or Doors' LA Woman, they were all recorded with UA610 consoles designed by Bill Putnam Sr. back in the late 50s. This is a custom example of a UA610 that was once owned by Arcade Fire, used to record their last album. They have a great warmth to their sound, they're very rich in harmonics, and just very musical. They're known for these iconic large input attenuator knobs. They have a simple 2-band EQ, low frequency and high frequency. We're in the Vintage King Audio storage room, and we're looking at 3 EMT 140 plate reverbs. They came out in 1957, and they're 8 by 4 foot in size and 1/4 ton in weight. They caused a ruckus in the recording world when they were first released because people were used to using chambers, which involved miking up an entire room. So they were a lot smaller in size than having an actual room. They still stand out in their tone today. They're mechanical. They use an 8 by 4 foot metal plate with transducers and pickups to create the reverb. They have an adjustable knob on the top where you can adjust the decay time. They sound super natural, dense, sweet, and just very natural sounding. So recently, Electric Lady Studios owners had sent this console to us to do a full restoration. We've restored over 100 consoles over a couple decades, and we take a lot of pride in the work we do. We do a full refurbishment, and we often spend over 600 to 800 hours on one of these consoles, really going through any of the electronic faults, recapping it, cleaning it, and bringing it back to its original glory. This is an original 70s API white desk. There wasn't many of these made in white. They're usually black in color. And this is very similar to one my brother and I owned at White Room Studio in Detroit, Michigan. It's a 32 by 16 by 24 monitor desk with 550 AEQs and some 525 compressors. They're known for their beautiful, musical, tight, punchy, but aggressive sound. So all the gear we've been looking at and talking about in this video so far, granted it's classic, a lot of it's very expensive. So although our name is Vintage King Audio and vintage gear is our roots, we've fully embraced technology and where the marketplace is going. What's great about technology today is there's a lot of software that emulates it very well, and there's a vast amount of great sounding new outboard gear and microphones that sound exceptional as well, that are more accessible in price ranges that are modest in relation to this more expensive vintage gear. So it's a nice balance, and it can hit pretty much any budget, depending on what you're looking for. We've been here for 26 years, based on the simple foundation of just treating people right every single time. My brother and I, again, we didn't fabricate Vintage King. We didn't think we're gonna start a pro audio business. We were the real deal musicians, engineer, producers, just struggling to make a living. And we sought to create a community. And over the years, we did that by just, no matter what the circumstances, if something goes wrong, we're here to take care of you and take care of what you're spending your hard-earned money on.